Welcome back. This is Sandy with Sandy's Organized Chaos, and today we're going to be doing this super easy. It kind of almost looks like ice tie-dye. Have you seen those shirts with the ice and the tie-dye? It kind of looks like that to me. And with the holidays right around the corner, I thought a Christmas look would be nice. So if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and let's wake up, prep these tumblers, and slay all day. Let's do this. I'm starting out on a 30-ounce tumbler that I went ahead and I prepped and I primed. This is just a double wall stainless steel tumbler, and I just primed it white because that's the glitter that I'll be using today. I have 30 milliliters of epoxy here in my cup, and I'm using my quick set epoxy today because I'm going to be adding my glitter right into my epoxy. So I'm just going to add a little bit of my first glitter here. This was called Pinnacle, and I'm just going to stir it up really good. I just kind of put enough on the top to kind of coat the top of it, and that seems to be enough for me. I'm also going to be adding a second glitter. This one is called Moonstone, and that is just the chunkier sister of Pinnacle. And you can find those at sscglitters.com if you'd like to purchase them. If not, use your favorite white glitter you already have on hand. So after I get that all mixed up, I'm going to go ahead and start applying it to my tumbler. Now the trick with this, whenever you put the glitter into the epoxy, and you want to make sure that it all stays kind of a uniform glitter look throughout without there being blotches of no glitter, is I'll take it and I just do individual stripes of it, and not smushing it too far away from each stripe that I do, just keeping it kind of centralized right where I apply it and going up and down with it, and just keep going around the entire tumbler this way, and that'll give you a nice uniform glittered look whenever you do it in this fashion. Now, I tend to apply my glitter into my epoxy, especially when I know I'm going to be doing some type of distressed look or a peekaboo or something like that. It just makes everything go by much quicker with a lot less coats of epoxy before you can reach the next step. So I'm going to go ahead and get that onto my turner. I'm going to go ahead and hit it really good with my blowtorch, getting all those little micro bubbles. And then I'm going to come through with my gloved hand, and I'm just going to clean up the rim a little bit. I'm also going to smooth out any areas that just seemed like they're kind of piling up. So right around the rim there, it kind of looks a little bit bulgy to me. So I'm just going to take my fingers and again, just kind of smooth everything out. I'll also take my fingers and kind of go around the bottom as well, just to make sure that there's no crazy lumps or bumps anywhere for me. I'm going to go ahead and let that cure. Now this should be completely smooth for you after it is cured. If not, go ahead and apply another coat, a thin coat of epoxy over top, making sure that it is nice and smooth for us for our next step. All right, she's nice and smooth and ready to go here. Now, I'm not going to do any type of sanding on my tumbler. You don't want to do that before this next step here because we're going to be using inks, and those inks could get kind of in those grooves of where the sandpaper was hit on it, and we don't want that. So you want a nice smooth surface for this. So to give it all that texture and kind of look like ice tie-dye, we're going to do the Saran Wrap method. Now this method has been out for a really long time. I've seen people do all kinds of really neat things with this. So we're just going to take some cling wrap, whatever you have on hand. It doesn't have to be the actual Saran Wrap. It could be whatever, okay? It could be the off-brand, all right? It doesn't matter. You just want enough to be able to fully wrap up your tumbler with it. And you also want to pick out some inks. So I'm going to be doing a Christmas themed one. So I got a green and I have a red here. So those are the two colors I'm going to be using. But of course, use any type of colors. Go wherever your imagination takes you. Now, all you want to do with your inks is you're just going to dot it around your Saran Wrap. Now, I didn't want all of my glitter to be covered up. So I'm actually leaving quite a bit of open spaces. If you want yours completely covered, you're going to need to add a little bit more ink. You want to make sure that it is nice and coated with that ink if you want it fully wrapped with that look. And you also want to keep in mind the colors that you pick out because they could get muddled together. So I'm trying to keep the red a little bit further away from the green, just a little bit up next to it as I go. So now all you want to do is you want to start wrapping up your tumbler and your Saran Wrap and alcohol inks. Now I had about an inch or two right there that didn't have any ink on it, so I'm just going to pull that back so that way I make sure that my tumbler is going to be fully encapsulated with my ink and Saran Wrap here. And the great thing about this is you really can't mess this up. It's That's all you want to do. Just squish your Saran Wrap on there. You just want to make sure it's nice and firmly pressed down on your tumbler. You want all the little extra lumps and bumps in your Saran Wrap because that's what's going to give it that texture that we want. So you just want to make sure it's fully covered, make sure it's kind of scrunched around, and all you're going to want to do is just set it off to the side and let it dry overnight. Now these inks need to dry fully in order for that look to happen for us. So no peeling back an hour later. You don't want to do that. You want to let it sit overnight to make sure those inks are fully dried. All right, I put it down, I went to bed, and here it is the next day. The inks are nice and dry, and you'll know because it's kind of tough to pull this Saran Wrap off as you go, so that's how you know everything is nice and dry. So as you go, those little details will really start to be exposed, and the great thing is you could reuse that Saran Wrap here. You can just spritz some more rubbing alcohol onto it, put down some more inks, and if you want to do the same colors and wrap it around another tumbler, and you can reuse it. So this is how it's gonna look after you peel it back. It has, like I said, just all those little extra details in it, and I just really think it's pretty cool looking. And if you see what I was talking about, the colors could get muddled. My red did mix with my green and make a little bit darker, but you know what? I'm gonna go with it. It kind of reminds me of Santa's belt, maybe, you know? So we got all the colors going. All right, before I do anything else, I'm gonna go ahead and put a coat of epoxy over top of this. So I'm gonna go ahead and give it a nice coating of my semi-gloss clear here. I'm gonna go ahead and get my epoxy put onto it. I just did a thin coat. I think it was about 15 milliliters of epoxy. Nothing too crazy. Then I'll go ahead and place it onto my turner, hit it up really good with my blowtorch, let that cure, and then we're ready to move on to the next step. Now for my decal, I just went on to Create a Fabrica, and I found this really cute decal that I'm going to be using. And the thing with this is I can't use printable vinyl with it because there's nowhere really for me to slice it to be able to form it to the curves of my tumbler. So I'm going to be using clear water slide paper to apply it to my tumbler today. And I decided to do kind of a distressed look behind it. So if you're new and you've never used clear water slide paper, I'm going to attach a video for you guys if you want to check that out to see how to do clear water slide paper. So I'm going to go ahead and get that printed out, sealed up, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, now my tumbler is nice and cured, and I'm gonna go ahead and clean up my rim. I'm gonna give it a sanding up there too, and I'm gonna give the rest of it a little bit of a sanding if I need to as well. And then we're gonna get started on that distressed pattern behind our decal. Now, typically I kind of just do freehand. I'll just spritz some white spray paint down to kind of give it that distressed look behind it. You can do that, but I wanted mine to kind of fit the decal just a little bit more. So I'm going to use my decal and figure out where I want to place it. Then I'm just going to give my decal a rough estimate, kind of like measurement, and I'm going to go about a 1/2 inch or so beyond that decal, just so that way I know I have enough space to be able to distress around the white area that I want to do. Then I'm just going to come through with a white acrylic marker and mark that area. So I think it was like 4.5 in length and about 4 in width. And then next I'm just going to take some painter's tape and I'm going to block off that area, making sure that I leave the area that I want to spray paint exposed. Now I have to set mine on the table to make sure I get it nice and straight and even, so that's why I have it standing up there. Again, just block it off, and then we're going to move it on outside to get it spray painted. All right, after we get it outside, I kind of want to do some like different colors behind the white, so that way when I distress it, those colors kind of poke through. So I'm going to take green and red, and I'm just going to spritz it along just the edges, because that's where I'm going to be distressing. So I'm just very lightly, you don't want to fill it up too much, just very light like that. And then I'm going to come through with the red as well and just kind of spritz that around too, just right around the edges. Now, don't mind my background. My shed kind of blew away the other day, so I was able to find my spray paints though, luckily. They were around, but I found them all. So after you do your light spritzing, you're just going to set that off to the side before we do the white. Now after that is nice and dry, you're just going to come back through and give it a nice coating of your white here. I'm trying to show you the can. I can't get my hand turned that way. So just put a coat of white over top of that, let that dry completely, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. All right, our paint is nice and dry, and then we're just going to go ahead and peel back our tape, exposing the area where our decal will get laid down. Now, before I get started on distressing, I'm just going to come through one more time and verify that my decal is going to fit in there nice and snugly. So just kind of making sure I have enough space around it to be able to do the distressing. Now, for the For the distressing, there we go, I'm going to be using 100% acetone, just nail polish remover, and I'm also going to be using some rubbing alcohol to do my distressing. I also have a paper towel and some Q-tips. So starting with the acetone first, I'm just going to take that paper towel and I'm going to get some of that right onto it so that way we can get started on roughing up these edges. So the acetone is going to take more away while the rubbing alcohol kind of does a little bit more just cleaning. It will take the paint away, but not as quickly as the acetone will. So again, I'm just going to start with my acetone and kind of start roughing up those edges. But the great thing about this is, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's supposed to look a little distressed, a little bit worn and torn. You just kind of want to just make it not so straight on the sides without going too far deep into that white area, making sure that your decal will still have enough room to be able to get in there and still be seen. Now after I got my edges all kind of roughed up with my acetone, I'm going to come through with my rubbing alcohol and a clean paper towel, and we are going to start kind of rubbing away some more of that white, exposing the colors underneath. So that's what this rubbing alcohol is for. It kind of removes layers away a little bit slower for us. So that's all I'm going to be doing here, is just kind of exposing a little bit more of that color underneath. Again, all while trying to keep it tight to the outside of that line. Now, once I get the outer side kind of done up the way I want, I'm just going to come through with my decal again before I do any more, just to make sure I'm still well within my decal area there. So I just wanted to add some little bit of detailing around the corners of my decal here. So I'm going to take my Q-tip, and I took some nail polish remover, some acetone, and I'm just going to use that to kind of buff away some distressed areas in the corners. But like I always tell you guys, there is no right or wrong when it comes to making art. However you feel this should look, how much you want to buff away, how much you don't want to do is completely up to you. So once I get everything kind of done up the way I would like to, I'm going to go ahead and come back through with another clean rag and my rubbing alcohol, and I'm going to tidy up all those areas that kind of look smudged. So you'll see the white kind of gives the epoxy kind of this hazy look, and we just want to wipe all that away, exposing the clean, crisp details and glitter of the tumbler underneath. Now, I don't like to put my waterslide decals over painted surfaces because I find that you can see the outline of the waterslide. So I'm going to go ahead and put a thin coating of epoxy over top of everything before I add my waterslide. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some little extra details as well into this coat of epoxy before I move any further too. So I'm going to go ahead and get some glitter sprinkled up onto this as well after I get this onto the turner. Now this is completely optional. I'm going to add a little bit of Steller right into the red areas of my tumbler here, just to kind of give it a little bit more, you know, just a little bit more glitter, a little bit more glitz. You know, you can never do without too much, I don't think. I don't know. I'm also going to add a little bit of Jingle as well. Not too much. Again, just a little bit here and there, wherever you'd like it to be. And then I'm going to go ahead, and if any little pieces of glitter got into the area where my decal is going to be, because that's the raw glitter, I'm just going to take something and kind of push it off of that area, because that is raw glitter and I don't want the decal to kind of go over top of it, because it'll make it a little bit harder for it to dry and there might be a white spot in it and we don't want that. So I'm just going to push that away. I'm going to let that cure and we're ready to add our decal. All right, so now let's move on to our decal. Everything's nice and smooth and we are ready to go. So the biggest thing I can tell you guys about water slide paper, I'm going to go ahead and wet the area, I'm going to get it applied, is if you're having issues with your water slide, so let's say you put it in the water and you see ink in the water, it wasn't sealed enough, okay? If you apply it to your tumbler and it rips on you, there wasn't enough a spray seal applied, all right? So that's the main thing I can tell you right off the bat. And another thing is when you're trying to form it onto a curvy tumbler like I'm gonna be doing here, I'm gonna get it lined up. I'm gonna go ahead and kind of press out the middle of my decal, kind of down the center of it. And then I'm just going to take my little squeegee off to the side. I just got that at the Dollar Tree right in the makeup section. And we're going to start squeegeeing away. So we want to go see how I'm doing it off to the side and off to the side on the other side. You just want to be very firm with it. The firmer you are, the better. It shouldn't rip. It shouldn't be bleeding on you at all. You should be able to fully take control of this decal and get it manipulated enough to be able to curve around that curve of your tumbler. Now, after I kind of squeegeed a little bit, I'm going to take my rag underneath. This is just a flannel rag that I have, just an old receiving blanket. And I'm really rough with this. Like I'm really rubbing hard and it should be perfectly fine for you. The harder you're able to rub it, the better, because that's the more you'll be able to form it around that curve. So I am just going to make sure that I fully get all that water out from underneath my decal, because if you don't get all that water out from underneath, it could leave little white spots like I said earlier. But see, nice and fully formed to the curve of that tumbler. Now all that is left to do is give it its final 2 coats of epoxy and she is good to go. Whether you take this design and duplicate it as is, or you take it and let it inspire you to create something that is completely your own, I hope that you guys had a lot of fun watching this tutorial today. Again, if you're new to my channel, don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next time.